ARHayes, Convict's Thoughts, and you thought you got rid of me for the night. I couldn't just let it all go. I gotta summarize. We did a good 3-part little series in regard to some of my thoughts on the Idaho 4 case and tragedy. And you know what? I was getting ready to lay my head down after doing some more research on some other cases, and then I've been working on a podcast I'm going to be releasing to all of you, and my mind just started racing. I gotta sum it all up for you. I gotta really tell you how I feel. I've been very just simple, to the point. I've never taken a stance that I stand either way. I mean, of course, I've said I don't believe that the suspect that's in custody right now, the defendant, Brian Koberger, is guilty. I haven't screamed it to the rooftops like many people say he should be doing, because there is possibilities that maybe I'm just overlooking something. And, when he goes to trial, I'm going to learn something new, and it's just all going to hit me like a ton of bricks. But I have to sum something up, and I have to do it my way. And I truly have to make the statement that if you're a person that has found BK absolutely guilty, nailed to the cross already as being the one, and throwing him to the firing squad, and if you're also one that just truly believes 100% that everything that law enforcement does, all the way up to the highest of levels, from the bare minimum to the highest of levels, that they don't make mistakes, that they don't get involved in corruption, that they don't take payoffs, that they don't screw people over, this is probably not the channel for you at this moment, because I'm going to lay some stuff down from personal experience and the way that I feel in my heart and in my mind that many just may not gravitate or like, because they're dead solid in the way that the world just works perfectly behind law enforcement, and politicians actually say things that are truthful, and that's not the way this world works, ladies and gentlemen, and I've been on the side that had to deal with law enforcement, not because I worked for them. It's because I was committing crimes, and I had to deal with them in the same way that this defendant's having to deal with them. Not only just law enforcement, but it goes through the whole prosecutor's office, all the way up to the district attorneys, to the general attorneys, to all the courts and everything involved. They're not perfect, ladies and gentlemen. They are not perfect. Mistakes are made. Bad arrests are made. Bad investigations happen. Planting of evidence happens. Dishonest interrogations have happened for years upon years. It's not new. So when you look in totality at this case, it's all circumstantial at this point, and I don't care that people are throwing me all these emails saying, well, they've got the Amazon order for the knife back from 7 months ago, and BS. You don't know that, because they wouldn't have had to file a second warrant through Amazon, because the first one got denied and Amazon did not provide any information, so they had to rewrite another warrant, secure that warrant, and ship it off, and we don't even know if Amazon sent anything back regarding that one. All these people that listen to Nancy Grace and the mainstream media, that's the only reason why you found this guy guilty. You cannot open your eyes and see what's happening right before you. The craziness of this trial. And I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody and saying you're dead solid guilty. But I'll tell you what, some of these law enforcement officers are already going to court because they admitted guilt to the deception and the lying that they did in other cases. You could do it once. Someone always told me, because I've been around the block as a criminal, and they told me, well, once you start thinking like a criminal, you're always a criminal. And you know what? They could potentially be right, because there is always times, even in my mind today, where thoughts of crime go through my mind. I relate back to an older way that I used to act, and the only reason why I stay on my straightened path is because now I've built a mentality in my mind that says I'm better than that. I'm not going to succumb to those thoughts. I'm not going to do it. It doesn't mean that I don't have the thought. It just means I now realize I don't want to do those things, so I shut the thoughts down and I move forward. A corrupt cop has the same concept that he has to go through on an everyday basis. If you're capable of doing it once, the thought's always there. And trust me, in a big case like this, you bring an investigator in that screwed up a whole nother murder case and was found to be deliberately deceiving and lying in that case. And now you bring him in to do interviews in the Idaho 4 case. Trust me, it's rumbling in the mind, especially with the pressure of solving said case. Law enforcement on the Idaho 4 case, the minute they made their first press conference and stepped in front of those microphones, they had two agendas that they were relying on. One, they were going to be dishonest and not give the public any actual true information in regards to the crime. They would throw bits and pieces out only in a nature to try to benefit themselves and their investigation. They did nothing to protect the community or even do anything to investigate other people other than the one that they put their eyes on. And I'm going to speak about that here in a minute, but I want to give you the agenda to what they did. They threw the mainstream media a fishing line and they said, we want to hook you in here. We're going to reel you in and you're going to help us find this suspect that we bring in and arrest. Just wait, we're going to do it right before the new year. We're going to bring this guy in and you're going to put out so much nonsense and craziness into the minds of the people through the mainstream media. We're going to guarantee ourselves a guilty verdict. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not even at trial yet, and I'd listen all day and every day to everybody that are battling for this man to be guilty, but thankfully, I have found people with enough intelligence and enough brain cells that they at least keep themselves neutral down the middle until it goes to court. That's all I ask for. It's called innocent until proven guilty. And when someone like myself comes from a background of having to sit at that defense table and rely on an unbiased jury to listen to the facts and make a good mental decision based off of said evidence that makes sense to find it either I'm reasonably guilty or I'm reasonably innocent. That's all I ask for. Hear it out, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. But where this has gone all wrong was from the very, very beginning. You have a law enforcement agency that played to the mainstream media, that played to the everyday people's hearts and minds because 4 young college individuals lost their lives. It's heartbreaking. I'm right here, and I go through the ups and downs of emotions just like everybody else, and sadly, people lost their lives. Whether they were into something they shouldn't have been into, which could be the case, or they were just up-and-coming bright stars going through the college scene to try to get their degrees and move through their futures. Great, I support that idea as well. I don't condemn or look down upon the victims. Look, I'm not perfect. I lived my life all the way down the wrong side of the railroad, so why would I look at anybody and put a judgment on them for the way they lived their life? They maybe were working on bettering their life. Maybe Xana took a look at what her mother was struggling with and said, I want to be better than that. Maybe Maddie looked at her parents and said, I've seen you be in trouble with the law. I want to be better than that. Ethan had goals in life. Kaylee had goals in life, even bought herself a new vehicle. No matter how she got it, it doesn't matter. She bought a new vehicle and she was aspiring to take a new job and work halfway across the country from where her said boyfriend and family resided. She was taking a risk, taking that first step. Good for her. We're proud of you. Make that happen. And then unfortunately, all of that came to a crazy end in a heartbeat. And so many people have grasped that and then taken the mainstream media and put it all together and found this defendant guilty based off of emotion. When there is so much out there that speaks volumes to a far different story of what possibly happened to these 4 lives, and then also the involvement of whatever it may be of the 2 roommates. I used to use the word surviving, but people have brought that up to me. You're right. I shouldn't use the word surviving. They are the roommates that just happen to still be alive. Whether they be involved in this case or not involved, they're still alive. They haven't been charged. My opinion, charges should be brought. If it was me, I would have felony charges. I'd be sitting in jail because I didn't pick up my phone to call 911. I would be in jail. And I'll tell you what, 90% of this country, if you don't have deep pockets and a way of talking yourself out of the mess, or a family member that can pull you out of the mess, you would be heavily investigated as well and possibly charged. I guess many people don't understand that. They haven't grasped that because they want to argue that fact. It's very true, ladies and gentlemen. It's an Idaho law. Every day I do more research into this case. I listen to everybody's ideas, opinions, theories, thoughts, heartaches, and it all touches me because I could just see how important this case is. Look, yes, number one, it's important for the actual lost lives to get justice. Number two, it's the families deserve for justice to be had for the people that took those loved ones from them. More so than that, this is a visual of how our justice system works. It's in the spotlight. And let me tell you, I sit and I watch and I listen and I just take everything in, and I'm disappointed. Maybe it's because I've been through it. Maybe it's because I've been railroaded before and had to do time for something I didn't do. You cleared individuals in a quadruple homicide investigation within days, yet stepped at the podium in front of everybody, not only in that community, but watching from afar. The United States, Canada, New Zealand. I have people messaging me from South Africa. People are watching, and these people, law enforcement, get in front of a microphone and make a mockery of what our country's all about. Everything you worked so hard for and pay your hard-earned money's worth of taxes into, they made a mockery of that. They're clearing people within days of a quadruple homicide, telling everybody out there that they don't have anybody in their visual, they don't have any suspect, they're looking for occupants of a car. They're making a mockery because if you really stop and you watch it, and I tell every single one of you, go back and watch the videos of the press conferences. Go back and watch them again and see how you feel today about how those people spoke and the mockery they made through their lies. They lied, not only to me, not only to you, but to every single one of us. Now, behind the scenes, they're giggling as they probably have this young man from Pennsylvania, doesn't have the money for big lawyers, coming out trying to better himself from an addiction issue that he overcame, working towards a PhD, even applying to work with the force. Who did he piss off on that force that they're going to want to just bring this kid down? Now, I've had many throw the issue towards me that maybe he's an informant. Maybe he's an undercover. Ladies and gentlemen, if that's the case, they just buried this kid, and he will never, ever outlive the damage that's been done. So if this is how you treat an informant or somebody that's working undercover, and you've ruined their life and most likely put his family's life at risk, how dare you? How dare you? I've had informants take me down in some of my cases. I've had undercovers that infiltrated within our little grouping that we were doing. And I'll tell you this, when we found out, when some of us got arrested and some of us didn't, the ones that did not get arrested, those individuals' families were at risk. So if this young man is being put up to this as an informant or an undercover, I'll tell you what, our whole system is screwed. Screwed. But it pisses me off. It pisses me off because I strive to be the best now that I can be in society. Society thought that they were sending me to prison to teach me a lesson for what? Recovery, right? Rehabilitation. Turn me into a better person. And let me tell you, it wasn't the penitentiary that did that. It was my wife. My wife did that. Not the penitentiary. Not the justice system. My wife created that whole mindset within me. And thank God she did. That young lady changed my world. And now I get to sit with all of you and speak about things like this, and I'm trying to open eyes. I want people to understand. Nobody's perfect. The system's not going to be perfect. Mistakes are made. But it's okay to admit when you make a mistake and reopen the doors to fixing said mistake. For some reason, this Idaho 4 case just keeps burying the mistakes under more dirt, hoping that we all turn our heads and just look a different direction. I'm not going to look a different direction, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call it as I see it. And in any case that we ever discuss and that I give my opinion on, I'm going to give it to you raw and real. I don't play to the masses. If I wanted to play to the masses, if I wanted more likes or clicks or subscribers on my page, I would play to the guilty realm. I would always play upon people's emotions just like mainstream media. I'll take a smaller scale channel if I can continue to be myself and speak it the way I feel it. I'm not going to play to people's emotions. I'm not going to do it. But I am going to really ask you, if you want to be a part of my channel, you want to be a part of my team, and you want to continue this relationship moving forward down the road, make sure you're open-minded. Keep your eyes open. You don't always have to agree with me. You don't have to always think that I'm right. I'm not asking that of you. But before you make up your mind, and you begin to share your feelings and opinions with others around you, because your voice matters. Every person's voice matters. When you take the strength to utilize your voice, you make a difference. Whether it be a good one or whether it be a negative one, it's all based off the way you decide to interject that into others. So I want to engage myself with open-minded, visually capable of seeing things on their own without it being directly manipulated by others. Don't come to me with something Nancy Grace says. Don't come to me with something that Banfield says. Don't come to me with the Jennifer Coffin Bopper dumbass. I probably shouldn't have said that word. I'm sorry. I normally don't do that. But she frustrates me so much. Don't come to me with that nonsense. I'm not going to be swayed emotionally to believe the nonsense that comes out of these liars' mouths. Look, there's more to the Idaho 4 story than what we're being told. The 26th is coming quick, and we're going to find out what all is in that dismissals hearing and motion, and what the defense really feels like those violations of this man's rights are. And I'm excited to see that, because that's going to tell me whether this defense is real or it's not. And I'll tell you right now, at any point that I feel as though my thoughts have changed or my feelings have changed, I will share them with you. I will give you my raw truth, even when I change past because I feel like I made a mistake. I'll admit to it. There's something wrong. Even Steve Gonzalez, in all of his change of past back and forth in this case, has always shown that he felt like something's wrong. Ethan's family completely distanced themselves from this case for a reason. We don't know what that is. Only they would know, and that's their right. But they've pulled themselves completely away. I don't blame them. I really don't. If I had lost my wife or one of my children, I'd probably come unglued and there would be wrath to pay. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of entities within this case that are being overlooked, and they're being overlooked intentionally. Law enforcement in this case effed up from the very beginning. The investigation from the get-go within that home was completely wrong. It was evident it was wrong, and they got up to the press release microphone and started lying from the get-go. This isn't the first time they've done it. Stickergate, liars. Back in the interrogation of the doctor that they were trying to pin a murder on, liars. They won't tell the truth of why all charges have been dropped against Emma and Demetrius. They won't tell the truth about how the youngsters are losing their lives in the area. They just want to keep continuously putting on accidental deaths instead of actually taking it on, investigating it, and putting out a proper report that it's most likely a hazing incident or something wrongfully happened. And let's get to the Brent Kopacka issue. Come on now. A complete SWAT disaster, intentionally shooting a man that most likely has some sort of information on something. There was nobody in the apartment with him. It doesn't matter if he had a weapon or not. What's the worst case scenario? He could hurt himself. Well, you took care of that for him, didn't you? And now that's a closed case as well. Way to go. How come everybody I talk to from the area says it's one of the most corrupt areas you've ever seen? Why would that be? Maybe for those that don't really think about it or realize it, why don't you take a step back and watch what's happening? Police officers driving property away from a crime scene in a U-Haul to deliver it back to the families. Have you been around many crime scenes that allow the evidence to be driven away by officers in U-Hauls to return to families? That's not how it works, ladies and gentlemen. That's not how it works. Chain of custody, even in the property of a home of a crime scene, has to go through chain of custody before being released. I know I'm not the only criminal, from the past that's looking at this case, because many reach out to me and compliment me on my mindset, the things I'm seeing, and they're in absolute agreement. Why? Because we've been there. We've endured this. And no, I was not wrongfully convicted in many of my cases. Absolutely not. They had me pinned. They had me nailed. Absolutely had me nailed. And I knew they had me nailed just the minute we sat down for 2 minutes of them explaining the discovery to me. I knew I was done in. I'm not dumb. I'm not ignorant. I'm well educated. No, I'm not a PhD criminology student. No. But I'll tell you what, I was a PhD criminal. I was good at what I did. I lived a rock star life financially, and I took care of a lot of people financially through what I did. The money was good, the lifestyle was good, but at the end of the day, life wasn't good. And that's why I don't do it. I would rather sit with you on a YouTube channel and discuss situations like this. Why are people so scared to look at people like a Showalter or a Jack D or an Adam or an Emma or a Dylan? Bethany's friends from Boise, Quinn with the daddy in prison that I actually know. That's how I could speak on that whole connection, because I know it. I don't just bring out info to you guys to try to start rumors, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of factual basis behind everything I say, whether I bring out my sources or whether I actually know the person. My wife grew up in Idaho, ladies and gentlemen. Before moving to the state I met her in of Arizona, my wife grew up in Idaho. My wife was in and out of Moscow and Coeur d'Alene and the areas all the time. I was going to go to college in Pullman at Washington State. I have family that lives in Washington State, not far from this. So when people say, well, you don't know the area. Yeah, I do. Yes, I do. And I know a lot of people in the area. There used to be a big compound that wasn't far from this area that got shut down just a couple of years ago that I knew a lot of individuals from the affiliation life. I know the area, ladies and gentlemen. I know the inner workings of a lot of things within the area. I just don't feel like I have to boast my past and my history to try to get everybody convinced that I know something. I leave doors and thoughts open so that I can hear other people's thoughts and opinions and keep my mind open to possibly I'm missing something and not seeing it as correct. Could there have been fights somewhere else and injuries incurred? Sure. It doesn't mean I believe that. But could it have happened? Absolutely. Could there have been something with Xana's window with the overhang and the ladder where people feel like there is a red substance up there? Possibly. I don't believe that, but there are people who do, and I can't say they're wrong. I mean, good Lord, there's blood streaming down the back of the home, and tell me one time you saw a picture of anybody investigating that or taping that off or anywhere near it, even looking at it. They didn't even go through the trash on the back porch. I could have just thrown said murder weapon in that trash on the back porch and the idiots would have never found it. They didn't even look at it. They can't confirm anything to you even before the gag order because they were lying. Is that to cover up somebody within law enforcement that's probably on a shady end of something? Could be. Could be. Many of the officers that approached that home doing the whole noise complaint crap sure were not professional in doing their job and did some pretty shady stuff, like taking a picture of a young lady's ID. I can't stop thinking about that, because if that was my daughter and I knew someone took a picture of my daughter's ID and then she lost her life not long after that, I'd be shredding everybody's ass over that. Like, I would be unglued. I don't care if you're law enforcement or not. I would be real upset, family member, if I knew the cops were literally in front of the murder scene minutes before it happened. Possibly while it happened. I mean, if you all remember, they first deemed the timeline of this crime, just like the car deal, they deemed the timeline a certain time and then changed that to fit the narrative. They put out a bolo on a certain type and year of car and then changed that right before the arrest. They had in the PCA all these phone pings, and then put into the PCA they made a mistake on one of them. But hey, we know this one was wrong, but please don't think all those were wrong. Those have to be right, even though this one was definitely wrong. I couldn't have gone shopping at Albertsons the day after committing a quadruple homicide. Not even the day after, it's the day of. Just hours later, he's in shopping at Albertsons. I don't care. People are telling me, well, of course he was in there. He was buying the stuff to be able to dispose of the evidence. I wouldn't have been able to be in public if I had just done what he's accused of doing. I'm a pretty calm and collected criminal. It's good that you guys didn't see me in my acts, because I was calm and collected. I could tell you story upon story of breaking into homes where there were 5 or 6 people in the home, some of them very young children, where I entered the rooms of young children to get to another room. Calm and collected, didn't bother me a bit. God, I'm glad I'm out of that world. Glad I'm out of that world and I'm able to spend time talking with you. But to sum all of this up, all of this could be summed up in one way. We are going to find out how our justice system works as this works itself through the court system. We've already seen the prosecution be able to win over the fact that the defendant had to waive his speedy trial because they wouldn't hand over evidence and wanted to fight everything. And this judge allowed it. He denied the extra time when they were still arguing over the IGG motions. Do people not realize that? They were still fighting over motions to compel evidence, and that's why the defense asked for the extension, and the prosecution got away with it, just shaking their head saying, no, we're not going to give it to him. No, we're not going to give it to him. It forced the waiving of a speedy trial. We already knew they were disputing the grand jury, but now he has to waive his speedy trial because the judge didn't even have time to make a ruling on the motion to compel, and then he also didn't move forward with the dispute on the actual grand jury indictment. He took so long to get the actual transcripts. How was this kid ever going to get a quick and speedy trial? It was never going to happen. I said that from the get-go. Never going to happen. But it's okay because, you know, the potential suspect sitting in jail in segregation, possibly innocent as can be, throwing away his whole PhD education. That's done and over with, ladies and gentlemen. That's screwed for him. And this young man had applied to work for law enforcement. And I believe literally they got butt hurt because he was smarter than them. He could train them in digital forensics. He could train them how to do many things they had no idea how to do. That was a part of this case a lot of people were missing. When it came to finding the original evidence in this case, the actual law enforcement investigating this case had to be trained by a whole nother group of individuals from another state. They didn't know how to do it. I know I get a little frustrated when somebody knows far more than I do, and it makes me want to learn. It doesn't make me want to out him. And for some reason, this young man got outed. People say he's different. He's odd. He's quiet. Maybe he doesn't get along so well with women. Maybe he overgrades his students. He got into an argument with his professor. Man, I've done all those things too. Done all those things too. I've argued with everybody on the planet Earth. And trust me, you've argued with a few too. So's everybody else. We're all odd. We're all unique. We're all different. I got crazy eyes. I've been beaten in the head, and I've had everything knock me silly, so I got droopy eyes. I got weird mouth. I got all kinds of stuff. But I'm still human. You're still here talking with me like a normal human being. And this young man was on a path of getting a PhD and a career that probably could have helped him support his family, who are devastated over this as well. I can't believe how literally disappointed this case has made me feel. And now I'm looking into the Delphi case, and in my research with that on top of it, now I've got 2 cases I'm looking at corruptness. And there's possibly more out there that I'm going to look into and say, oh shit, this one too? Really? There's a lot, ladies and gentlemen. Law enforcement is understaffed. They're cutting corners. They don't always hire the best of people now because they're a little more desperate. Well, they never have. Through the years, we've had issues within law enforcement. Ask Rodney King how he feels today. You know, ask some of these people that have lost their lives at the hands of law enforcement. How do they feel about it? Do they feel that was just and fair to them? I sure hope there's 2 routes that this could go that could save face. If the justice system in Idaho dismisses this case and says, come back with real and valuable evidence, and let's lift this gag order and allow the people to know that we're doing this on an honest, straightforward manner, not a hidden, everything sealed. Who are you protecting by sealing everything? You have a defendant and 4 lost lives. We know of the 2 roommates. Who are you defending? If this is really the guy, you got him locked up. What do you guys seal everything for? Who's he going to get a hold of? He's a nobody. He's not a player. He's not picking up a phone from your jail and getting his whole crew of people to come handle a witness. What are you hiding? What are you sealing everything for? Unseal it. Show your hand. Show what's up. And the second route that it actually could be correct is if they do come to the table, either A, admit that they're wrong and they don't have the evidence and just dismiss charges, or B, come out plain and simple, like I said, right up front and say, we got all the evidence and boom, here it is, let's go. Start fulfilling the motions to compel. Give them the evidence. Let's do this. Let's go to trial and let's fight it out and let's see the proof. It's not that hard, ladies and gentlemen. And let's stop buying books written by somebody that's just copying everything mainstream media says and bolstering this BS book that I'm sure he can't even write. And we're just already donating our hard-earned money to people writing books on a case that's not even solved. It hadn't even gone to trial. Come on, man. Let's stop it. Our country is a great country. There are great, amazing people in this country, and I'm growing every day to learn that. Like, I didn't think that way when I was younger. I'm learning it day in and day out now. Why? Because I engage myself and I intermingle with so many of you, and I love every single one of your comments and your feedbacks, and I get writing back with as many of you as I possibly can, and this is what I do. I work through the day and through the night to work with you, for you. I go on other content creators' shows. I do as much as I can to discuss things, to open awareness of things that are going on. So, I'm going to end this. This is my summation on the Idaho 4 case, and this is where I stand. It's a botched investigation led by a grouping of law enforcement lying to all of you. The actual perps are not caught. They are not behind bars. Law enforcement could very well be involved, or at least covering up for those who are. There are deep pockets in play here that are spending a lot of money buying more college things, like a whole other college, and they're protecting the community and their livelihoods because they got to keep that money rolling in. It's a collaboration of big money people that are in on this, and I guarantee you there's a drug tone to it. There is a drug tone to this case. This has got a lot of informants involved. It's got a lot of undercovers involved, but the person behind bars was not the one those undercovers and informants were working to take down. They got the big boy. The big fish went down. The biggest drug bust in the history of Idaho. They got the big fish. And now what's sad is we have a young man sitting in a jail cell, possibly going to lose his life because everybody quit investigating a quadruple homicide to find the actual perpetrators of the crime. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Convicts Thoughts. ARHayes. You have a great one. We'll talk again soon.